All right, this has become one of my favorite things to do each week. We just started at the beginning of the football season, and we've been doing it every week on Tuesday since then. I enjoy doing it. I hope you enjoy these as well. I got my camera trying to get a slightly better angle there. Center myself. I moved the wrong way. There we go. It doesn't matter. Trying to get it all set up here on camera so we look the way we want to look. But hopefully you enjoy these as well. Every Tuesday we take Pat Narduzzi's Monday press conference, his weekly press conference, and break down 4 or 5 or 6 of the things that stood out the most to me or were interesting to me, or maybe not even like the most notable things he said, but just things that I want to comment on or talk about or react to or respond to. And I figure it's more interesting to splice Narduzzi's comments in here rather than me reading the quotes, which I think we've done in the past. Be like, oh, there was this thing Pat Narduzzi said yesterday. Let me read it to you. And then I read the quote, and then I respond to it. Might as well splice the video in since we make our own videos at the press conferences. So might as well use that and splice it in and let you hear from the man himself and then respond to it as well. So Pat Narduzzi hit on a bunch of interesting topics yesterday as Pitt gets ready to go to Stanford, taking their 6-2 overall record, 4-1 mark in the ACC on the road to take on the Stanford Cardinal in a big game for sure. I don't think anybody has any question about that. This is another big game, and I'll get into the whole narrative and big picture stuff it's basically everything I said about the NC State game last week. It all applies now to this Stanford game, and it's even louder and more pressure because there's more to play for, and you're that much closer to the opportunity to go into November at 7-2. We'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. No, tomorrow we'll probably talk about the Pitt basketball game that was last night. We're recording this Morning Pitt before the basketball game, so I can't really react to that. We'll talk about basketball tomorrow, but then on Thursday we'll talk about some of that pressure and what it means to go into November 7-2 and what's at stake for Pitt in this game at Stanford. But today we're going to react to some of the things that Pat Narduzzi talked about yesterday. Where he talked about the defensive packages, he talked about Mason Heintschel's improvement, he talked about the travel to Stanford and the challenges therein. And then one other thing that I asked him about that I was curious about, I meant to ask him about it last week, but I forgot, so I asked him about it this week, kind of outside the realm of Pitt, but certainly within the realm of college sports, and he had a pretty passionate answer to that, and one of his better answers, I think, to a question in quite some time. So we got a lot to get to. Let's dive into it. Reactions to Pat Narduzzi's weekly press conference right here on the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, you know what we're asking you to do all week? Like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We're inching closer to 5,000 subscribers right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I know that's not much in the realm of all the weirdos that my kids watch on YouTube all the time. I know it's probably not much in the world of sports weirdos on YouTube. But for this particular Pitt weirdo, I would like to get up to 5,000 subscribers. I think that'd be really cool. I don't think they'll send balloons or anything like that, but it would be cool for us to get to 5,000 subscribers. So if you're watching this podcast, you're listening to the audio podcast, we still put the audio podcast out there for you. Don't really get anything out of it, but we still put it out there. So the least you can do for me is go over to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, click subscribe. So you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, and we would really appreciate it. And there are benefits because once you're subscribed, you can turn on notifications and get an alert sent to your phone whenever we go live. So when we have our Wednesday night live show, our post-game shows on Saturdays after the game, you don't know what time it's going to start. Well, subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com and turn on the notifications. You'll get an alert when we go live, so you won't have to worry about missing anything. All right, thanks for doing that. We appreciate it. I see the numbers going up, and so it's very cool of all of you to help us out in that regard. All right, Pat Narduzzi yesterday, first question he got is something that I was certainly interested in asking about as well. I didn't ask the question, but it was a good question and one that I'm interested in. We talked about that Night Stalkers package, that new third down defensive sub package that they rolled out last Saturday against NC State. They had to put it in because they were short on linebackers. It was really more of a 4-2-5 than their traditional, their 3-3-5 that they've mostly used on third down since Narduzzi got here. And so our good fan Nathan Breisinger from Pittsburgh Sports Now asked, has that been in your pocket for a while? Like, have you been holding on to that package and you just rolled it out? How long have you been developing it? And, how long, have you been holding on to it before you used it? And here's what Narduzzi said.
Since Monday. It was just a matter of saying, okay, on third down, it was like Monday. We game plan on Mondays and Tuesdays, but it was a thought on Monday, and then game plan Tuesday night for third down is what we do. And again, it's always just a matter of trying to find out, how do we get our best personnel on the field. It's third down, it's money down. And we got to win that down. It doesn't matter what happens on first down, second down, but when you get to third down and fourth down, like, how are we going to manage? And then you got different guys doing different jobs. That's the problem. And so they got to get it executed. They got to get on the right pass. If you are blitzing and all your four-man pressures, how are you going to navigate those things? But it was really Monday and Tuesday, like, who are they? And then what are we going to do if we get to, to a 2-minute situation, we get into victory defense. I mean, there's all these, it just was a lot more to prepare for our guys. And they did it, like I said, they did a great job, but they didn't waver and go, well, Coach, why are we doing that? We don't have enough linebackers on the field. It was just, so it was, but again, it's using our base package and just teaching guys new jobs, okay? And that's kind of what we did. It's not like we changed, all the different things that we do in that package. It's the same package, just teaching guys different jobs.
Yeah, since Monday. I mean, that was the impression I got from Pat Narduzzi after the game on Saturday, and in talking to different people around the program since then. I mean, that was a brand new thing they developed because they knew their linebacker depth was going to be down, and so they had to make do with the players they had, and so they sort of developed this package. They ended up using it 11 times, this 4-2-5 package, although one of the 4 down linemen was Isaiah Neal, who was standing up and walking around, kind of attacking from lots of different areas. But they used that package 11 times against NC State. 8 of those 11 were on third down, and NC State converted just 2 of those third downs against Pitt. It was a 3rd and 8, both in the second half, on like their 5th drive in the second half. So next to last drive for the starters, I guess. They converted a 3rd and 8 with a scramble, and then a 3rd and 10 with a scramble. So, when they went against Pitt's top line defense, or whatever passed for Pitt's top line defense on Saturday, NC State, facing that package on third down, was never able to really get anything. 3rd and 8, incomplete pass. 3rd and 10, 6-yard pass. 3rd and 6, incomplete pass. 3rd and 8, there was a scramble. CJ Bailey actually scrambled and got the first down, but he fumbled. And so, even that play ended up going for not a third down conversion because he fumbled on the play and Pitt recovered. 3rd and 6, they threw a 4-yard pass. And then the 2 scrambles to convert third downs, and then they had one more third down at the end of the game. They had a 4-yard pass on 3rd and 6. So it was a pretty effective package. I'm sure the coaches would like to go back to their Delta defensive sub-package on third down, simply because that would mean they have the depth back. They have their linebackers back, Rasheem Miles and or Kyle Lewis most specifically, Nick Lappy as well. But I think they found that they can move guys around and ask guys to do different things and have some success with it. One guy they asked to do a lot of things, not Kavir Baines-Marquez, although he did a ton of stuff, and we talked about him a lot yesterday, but Cameron Lindsey, the redshirt freshman linebacker, made his first career start on Saturday. And, I detailed this yesterday. He was all over the place. He started the game at star linebacker. When they had Abe Ibrahim on the field at middle linebacker, Braylon Lovelace played money and Cam Lindsey played star linebacker. But then if they got into a 2nd and long, that was usually on first down. If they got into a 2nd and long, Ibrahim would go off the field. Lovelace would move back to the middle. Kavir Baines-Marquez would come in to play star linebacker, and Cameron Lindsey would move to money linebacker. And then you get into third down situations, and there's only 2 linebackers on the field. It was Cam Lindsey and Braylon Lovelace. So you really had like 3 different roles for Cameron Lindsey, both outside linebacker positions and the third down package as one of the 2 linebackers on the field. And Lindsey finished that game, just checking real quick, he had 4 tackles. So he was tied for 2nd on the team with 4 tackles. He had the forced fumble on that fumble play that I talked about earlier. And this comes after the Syracuse game where he stepped in for Kyle Lewis, played more than 50 snaps, ended up with a team-high 7 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. So over the last 2 games, Cam Lindsey has played 108 snaps, well more than he has ever played before in his career. Like defensive snaps, according to Pro Football Focus, Cam Lindsey's played 160 this season. He played 108 in the last 2 games. You look at his career, Cam Lindsey has played 173 defensive snaps, according to Pro Football Focus. 108 of those 173 have come in the last 2 games. And he's got 11 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a couple pressures, a forced fumble. He's got a lot to show for it. And a pretty pretty strong performance. So I asked Pat Narduzzi about that. Like, how did Cam Lindsey do when you were throwing a lot of stuff at him? How did he handle it?
He did well. I mean, first start, I think he did a heck of a job. He's only going to get better from all the reps he got in that game. I mean, it's not going to be like now when he goes in, whatever situation is, whether it's as a starter or is it, backing somebody up. I mean, you got more confidence in him. He's watched the tape yesterday. He knows the things he made mistakes at, and he knows he's got to be detailed. As we talked in here last night, it's every play. Every play could cost you the game, depending on who you're playing. And that effort yesterday might not be good enough this week. So we got to continue to get better. And there's a lot of things we can clean up from Saturday. And Cam's definitely got a lot of things to clean up on his part.
Yeah, not as much praise as I was expecting. Although Narduzzi said for his first start, I think he did a heck of a job. But, I mean, the main point there is just emphasizing the details. And I think when you have a young player like Cam Lindsey getting as much snaps as he's been getting as much work as he's been getting in the last 2 games, more than he's ever had in his career, you want to keep pushing him. You want to keep pushing him to emphasize those details and all the little things that he needs to do. And I take most of what Narduzzi said there just to be a reflection of the fact that he and the rest of the Pitt coaching staff see a pretty bright future for Cameron Lindsey. I think we're going to talk to the linebackers coach Ryan Manilak this week. I hope I'd like to get his take on Cam Lindsey and how he's done with all the different roles and things he's been asked to do. But I think they see a really bright future for Cameron Lindsey, and so they want to keep pushing him. And so even if he played pretty well for a guy making his first career start, a guy playing 50 snaps for just the second time in his career and the second time in 2 weeks, you don't want him to get too high on himself, I guess. Not that I think Cam Lindsey is, but I'm just, I think you want to keep pushing him like, hey, nice job, but here's this detail, here's that detail. You need to keep getting better. You need to keep improving. And I think he will. And I think, ideally you would have Kyle Lewis available for every snap of every game this season, but every time Cam Lindsey has to go out there, it's making him better for next season. It's giving him a better more experience and more reps to improve for when, potentially he's going to have to be in a starting job next year. Flipping over to the other side of the ball, obviously Mason Heintschel had a huge game, a big bounce back from that performance at Syracuse, where he only threw for like 140 yards. He comes out 423 and 3 touchdowns, 28-48, but as I keep saying, it felt more efficient than that. It felt more effective than that, and I think it was more efficient and more effective than that. He was getting the ball to his playmakers. He was getting guys the ball with opportunities to make plays. And not surprisingly, that's probably what Pat Narduzzi liked the most out of Mason Heintschel's performance, that he's just taking what the defense gave him, and that's what Narduzzi would like to see more of.
There's a lot of things we can do better, just like depending on the coverage and taking your checkdowns. I mean, late in the game, he took his checkdowns, whether it's throwing to Joel's Goff that gains a first down on whatever it was, 2nd and 11. Gets a first down, but just not trying to be the hero. I mean, he tried to be a hero, a lot the week before, and try to make those plays down the field. And there was a couple times where he tried to do that a little bit, way less. But there's times where he's like it's great to throw a check down and get 11 yards on. Let him run with it. You don't have to throw a 50-yard pass. You can throw a 3-yard pass and get 50. So I think that's just something that's going to be a week-to-week growth out of him. Overall, and then based on the defense you're seeing and the pressure you're under, I think that all matters.
Yeah, the other thing Mason Heintschel did really well is he got the ball to his playmakers. Like I say, spreading it around, taking those checkdowns, like Pat Narduzzi said, and that's something we even talked about after the Syracuse game, and we talked about it. That there was something he needed to do more of. I often reference that one play against Florida State when he, 3rd and 6, checks it down to Des Reed and gets a 50-yard gain out of it. That was what he needed to do more of, that he didn't do well against Syracuse, and he did much better job against NC State. And then, just spreading the ball around, 11 different receivers, 11 different players caught a pass on Saturday. It could have been 12 if Sincere Lee didn't drop that one. And some of the numbers of just sort of how he spread it around, and the kinds of plays he was getting out of guys. 4 different Pitt players caught at least, caught a pass of 20 yards or more, and Justin Holmes had a 19-yard pass on 4th and 2, so you can almost throw that one in there. Kenny Johnson had 2 20-yard catches and a 19. Blue Hicks had a 29 and an 84. I think Raphael Williams had a 22-yard catch. Deuce Spann had a 28-yard catch. Getting the ball to these guys and giving them opportunities to make plays and not just forcing it to one guy. I mean, Kenny Johnson obviously had a huge game, 7 catches for $115 and a touchdown in the first half. He had a huge game, but he didn't just force it to guys. I was looking at conversions on third downs. Like Kenny Johnson converted a third down. Desmond Reed converted a third down. Blue Hicks converted a third down. Zion Fowler-El converted a third down. Raphael Williams converted 2 third downs. That's 5 guys who converted third downs, plus Justin Holmes, who caught a 4th down pass and conversion. I mean, just spreading the ball around, finding the guys who are open, getting it to them, and letting them make plays. And that was one of the big things that Pat Narduzzi emphasized when we talked to him yesterday.
Mason's finding them, and they're making plays when they get an opportunity. I mean, that play to, Blue is a big one. You got to love those gigantic, those are real explosive plays. But, I thought Kenny Johnson played lights out. I mean, that guy, he was unstoppable when he was in there. That was great to see. I mentioned him last, compared to where he was at North Carolina last year, compared to where he is now, like just the development that, JJ has done in that receiver room, and Coach Bell, as far as just the little things that he's doing, he's special, and we got to get him to continue to play at that high level.
Yeah, he kind of sidetracked into just talking about Kenny Johnson, but he should. Kenny Johnson's really good. Like, Kenny Johnson could have had a 250-yard game on Saturday if he had played in the second half. You hope he's healthy and he's back and ready to play, but we've been talking about Kenny Johnson for almost 3 years now and talking about how he needs to get the ball more and he could be an impact player and he could be a big-time wide receiver. He was that on Saturday. There was a stretch. I meant to have this open. There was a stretch in the first half. Let me find this where he as much as a receiver can, Kenny Johnson took over the game. It was, here. After NC State scored with their bubble drive and made it 10-7, Pitt came out. They have the ball at their own 17. Des Reed runs for no yards on first down. 2nd and 10, Kenny Johnson catches a 12-yard pass. They get a false start on the next first down. It's 1st and 15. Kenny Johnson catches a 13-yard pass. 2nd and 2. Kenny Johnson catches a 23-yard pass. Des Reed runs, but loses yards, but they have a face mask penalty. It's 1st and 10 at the NC State 25. Jakarian Turner runs 4 yards, and then on 2nd and 6, Kenny Johnson catches a 19-yard pass. So on that drive, he caught passes of 12, 13, 23, and 19. And then the next play, Des Reed runs in from 2 yards out. So they go from the 17, they go 73 yards, and Kenny Johnson goes 12, 13, 23, and 19. I mean, talk about doing the heavy lifting. He took over that game. And I think that was a case where Mason Heintschel knew, this is my dude. I'm getting him the ball because he's not being stopped right now. And it was true. NC State wasn't stopping him. And even after that, he still had a 26-yard catch on a 3rd down later, and then he had the touchdown play. Kenny Johnson is playing like the guy that we've all been thinking Kenny Johnson could be for a very long time. And he's done it. He's, 2 100-yard games with Mason Heintschel. Plus, I think he played well at Florida State, and then he had the huge punt return against Syracuse. So Kenny Johnson is quietly emerging as one of this team's best players, which he's probably been for a while. He just needed that opportunity. Obviously, this weekend, one of the big storylines, Pitt going west, taking on Stanford, playing a West Coast game. And, they always talk about this with the NFL when somebody, the Seahawks come to town, or the 49ers or the Chargers or somebody, or when the Steelers have to go out there, or any teams when they have to cross the coasts. It often gets talked about. But this is the first time Pitt's going to have to do it for a regular season game. And there's some challenges that come along with that. So we asked Pat Narduzzi about it. How does this, how do you adjust to it? How do you not let it disrupt your practice? And how do you prepare for it and adjust to it? Here's what Narduzzi said.
Well, the week of practice is going to be the same. It's the same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is exactly the same, except we're leaving a little early. So, we'll just, instead of them hanging back at the bridge on the Forbes or their apartments, we're just going to spend, 5 hours on an airplane together and get their iPads all downloaded with videotapes so they can do their homework on the plane. It shouldn't be. It's like going to Syracuse. It's like going to Tallahassee. It's a road trip, and I think the more you make of it, the more it becomes an issue. I don't think it's an issue. It's a little bit of a time change. We go out and play. I think the best thing is it's an early game for us. It would be a major deal if we were playing 7:30 at night. Pacific time and getting off the field at 2:30 in the morning playing in the fourth quarter. I think that's a tough one. This one is very, very reasonable, I think.
Have you reached out to anyone, any friends in the ACC, other coaches, say, hey, what was your experience with the
Yeah, I haven't, but Chris LaSalle, he's my ops guy, my main man. He does all that. He takes care of he knows what we want. We call a lot of people every week. Doesn't matter if you're traveling to Syracuse to find out is the press box any different, that little glass house they have up there at the Dome, or you're going to Tallahassee. How's the locker room? How's this? How's that? We're always doing our homework, just like a coach. I mean, we're trying to find out what they're doing on offense and defense, and we're always doing our intel on what's happening operationally, and what are the things that we need to get done when we're out there.
Yeah, I think one of his last point there, I struggled with this on Saturday night on the postgame show. I was getting my words mixed up. I don't know if it was, because it was after a win, or it was getting a little bit later at the night, or maybe the, shot of the game or whatever it might be. But, 3:30 kickoff here means a 12:30 kickoff there. And I think that's really an ideal time for Pitt to kick off a West Coast game, because out there, when the team is out there local time, it's going to be 12:30 in the afternoon. Okay, that's normal enough. If their bodies are still feeling East Coast time, it's going to be 3:30, which they just played a game at 3:30. This is not like Pat Narduzzi said. If it was a game at 7:30, their bodies are telling him it's 10:30 at night. That's bad. You don't want to be playing football at that point, even though they're going out Thursday and taking an extra day to get used to the time change. And then afterward, I mean, you're not getting home. God, if you have a 7:30, 8 o'clock game, you're not getting to the airport to fly home until probably 1:30, 2 o'clock West Coast time if you leave right after the game. And then that's 5. You're not getting home until 10 o'clock in the morning the next day, or 11 o'clock in the morning the next day, depending on what your flights are like. I mean, it could be an absolute nightmare if you had played at different times. There was that Friday night game, Carolina played at Cal, I think it was. That's brutal. That is some brutal travel that you're going to have to deal with there. And so Pitt got lucky in that regard. I think Pat Narduzzi's right. You try to keep things as normal and regular as possible. You just understand that you're going to be changing the clocks 3 hours backward once you fly out there. And so you'll have to adjust for that and accommodate for that. It won't mess up their next week of preparation because they're off the following week, but you do need to make some adjustments there. In how you plan the travel and how you plan out your week of prep and everything like that. All right, and then the last thing, and this was one of the last questions in the press conference yesterday, and I saved it until the end because it's a little bit off topic, but very much on topic in terms of college. It's a little off topic in terms of Pitt, but it's on topic in terms of college sports. And that's a decision last week. The NCAA, in its infinite wisdom, decided that coaches and student athletes are permitted to bet on pro sports. And I cannot, for the life of me, decide who thought this was a good idea. Who said, you know what we really need? We need to let the kids bet on pro sports. Stupefying. And you know what? Pat Narduzzi agrees. Here's what he thinks about the idea.
They don't ask the coaches. I think it's absolutely one of the stupidest decisions I've ever seen. First of all, it's a habit. It's no different than smoking, drinking, doing drugs. It's a bad habit, and I don't think anybody in here would encourage you guys to go out drinking and getting smashed on a Friday night or Saturday night, or at a ball game in at Acrisure Stadium, and it's a disease. I mean, you saw the same day that comes out, there's a disease in the NBA with what's going on there, and it doesn't matter how much money you make as a coach, you're still gambling like that. It's not to make money. It's because your addiction to it, I guess. I mean, that's the only thing I can, and I'm not speaking for anybody, but I just think it's an addiction. And I think if you want to go to the casino down the road and hang out there and throw your money away, think you're going to continue to win. I mean, gambling's gambling. I'm not a gambler. I just don't understand it. I'm not addicted to anything. I just don't think it's a great thing to teach our young people how to do. And to say now, it's hard enough in the compliance office of trying to get your guys not to gamble. You can gamble on a boxing match. You can gamble, on horse races because it's not an NCAA sport. But who's gambling on the horse races, really? I mean, unless you go to the horse track. But and you can go to the casino and play, craps or whatever you want to play. But now, it's a thing on your phone, and you can pick it up and you can get on an app, and it's like, what are we doing? And once you do it once and you win, you want to go do it again. It becomes an addiction. I just think it's not good. And and it's the same thing with these availability reports. I mean, what are we doing? We're encouraging gambling and people to say, oh, he's out. Let me put some more money down there, see if I can, get it done and win. So, good question. It's a bad deal. And it all comes down to they probably don't want to have to take care of all the business that goes with trying to monitor it. But push the wrong button on your phone, see what happens. Go, oh, I thought that I did it, but I thought it was an NFL game. I pushed the wrong button and just put a bet on a college football game. I just think it's not good, and I'm not going to change my tune. Tomorrow I'll talk about, because I haven't had a chance to really address our team. I'll talk about a team meeting. One of the first things I'll talk about is I guess November 1st they can do that, but stay away. Nothing changes in our room. You guys shouldn't be doing any of that. Save your money, put it in the bank. That's my feelings.
Quote, I think it's absolutely one of the stupidest decisions I've ever seen. End quote. I can't disagree. I don't even have much more to add on top of Pat Narduzzi's answer there. I just wanted to put it out there for you. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Ostensibly, the availability reports were created this year to try to insulate the student athletes from the gambling element, that, if we put this information out, then the gamblers and bookmakers or whatever will be less inclined to approach student athletes to find out who's playing and who's not. So they're trying to insulate from that element. And then they're passing a rule that allows them to get even closer to that element than they ever were before. It's idiotic. And Narduzzi's right. It's fitting that decision was announced the day before there was a major bust in the NBA, for gambling related offenses. It's fitting, because there's nothing good that will come of this. Not one thing. But I wanted to ask Narduzzi about it. I wanted to see what he had to say, and I think he delivered with a pretty good answer there. All right, tomorrow we'll talk a little Pitt basketball, reflect on that exhibition game against UPJ last night, and also a little Pitt basketball recruiting news, so some good stuff there. And, we'll move on through this week, get you ready for Pitt Stanford. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you never miss any of our Pitt video content, and so I can get closer to that 5,000 number. That would be really cool. Click subscribe. We really appreciate it. Hope your week got off to a great start. Thanks for watching today. Enjoy your Tuesday, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.